Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPa here again, and today I want to share my thoughts on whether or not we need a Destiny 3. And I think this conversation is more complicated than most will give credit for because there's a lot of factors and stuff that would need to happen in order for D3 to be a success long term. So I'm going to wade into all of that and also talk about some of the problems that Destiny faces because of the way the fans of the franchise behave in general, what they're looking for in the game. We know that fans of Destiny hate sunsetting and power caps, which is completely fair, but there's a reason that most MMOs have some kind of system for those going forward. And the reason is because when you have the best stuff in the game and you can obtain the new best stuff that comes out with another expansion or something like that, if it isn't significantly better, which causes power creep, there's really no reason to chase it as much as you might want. So you have two different options. You either introduce new items which are significantly superior to old items, meaning power creep is a thing, the old items are mostly obsolete anyway, and you have to scale the enemies around the new items, or you have some sort of sunsetting or power cap so that way the old items are still usable in old content, but for the new content you need to go out and obtain the new items. And so that's really where Destiny struggles, and I think has been an issue that has never been resolved. And it's why I think Destiny 3 is necessary, because you need a refresh of sorts that just cannot happen with Destiny 2. However, the biggest issue there would be the step from Destiny 2 to Destiny 3 would have to be much larger than the step from Destiny 1 to Destiny 2, which felt like a very small step in general. A lot of times the game felt like it improved and there was better features, but ultimately it's the same game when all is said and done. There's a lot of the same classes with some minor adjustments to the subclasses, and then over time we got even more wild changes to the subclasses, but at the beginning it felt very similar to D1. Whereas for D3, I think we would need not only a gap in time from new content of Destiny 2, so this is where it gets a little bit complicated. You would need Marathon to be successful in order to generate the revenue to allow a break in new content for Destiny. Fans would be unhappy with that for the short term, but I think long term, either you do it to overhaul Destiny 2 or you do it to make a Destiny 3, and either way it requires some grand changes to the structure of the franchise. And they need funding in order to do that. And they need to stop making new content for Destiny 2 in order to do that as well. Even if you rerun some seasons or you bring back some old content and just have some fun things, some events going on, and that's all you do while you're working on the next thing, that is absolutely what would be needed. Whether it takes a year, 3 years, 5 years, does not matter. As long as they can budget it, afford it on the revenue, then absolutely that's what needs to happen. So that way Destiny 3 would come around and would be not only a complete overhaul as far as gameplay, but engine would be updated. You would have maybe different playable races, which would be very interesting. You could have different traits for each playable race and have more customization there. You could overhaul the way classes work, especially now that we've had Prismatic for a while. You could have a lot more mix and match options without having maybe a specific class structure, and really customize your characters in a more RPG, MMO type manner. Stuff like that would be necessary in my opinion. Probably a different storyline, either far in the future for the franchise. You could do a distant location as well, which would help out and allow you to introduce different races and different themes, different looking locations, all that kind of good stuff. And that's really where I think the debate kind of becomes interesting, because I do feel like people are looking towards D2 to D3 as like, oh, they're just going to wipe our stuff and continue on making the same game. Whereas, in my opinion, in order to be successful, they would need a grand change in order to revitalize the franchise. And that's really what's needed. I also think sometimes a break in content is good. Sometimes when you have like an MMO like Final Fantasy 14 and you only have a major expansion once every 2 years, having some downtime is not that much of a problem. It's just hard because it seems like Destiny is so expensive to make that they require this massive amount of ongoing revenue that is just not going to be sustainable for the long term. And so you would hope they would be able to adjust and make some changes as they've already done with some of their layoffs and everything like that. Unfortunately, where they're able to make this content and build towards the future, because right now the biggest issue with Destiny 2 in my opinion is that they keep adjusting course. They keep making these short-term changes, short-term fixes for a game that needs a long-term overhaul, and that's just unlikely to happen as long as they continue to keep churning out this content, and content that honestly people are just tired of because of many reasons. Destiny will always have fans. I don't think it'll ever truly go away unless they completely run out of funding and can't budget it anymore. But I do feel like at this point, the game's player base is dwindling because it is so difficult to maintain this game at the cost that it is, at the amount of content that people want, with the amount of change that's desperately needed. Right now, the issue is that if you get a new piece of gear in Destiny 2, either it's better than what you have or there's really not a reason to chase it. And so a lot of the weapons are instantly obsolete if you already have a god roll for something that's the equivalent. Or they add stuff that is significantly better, and now you start to get into those power creep issues. And there's just no solution for this right now without sunsetting or power caps, which again, as I've talked about, is not going to happen. So it's a real problem that honestly Bungie has put itself in, and I don't know, outside of a break in content, an overhaul, maybe a Destiny 3, what other solutions there are, because I cannot see the new Codename Frontiers being that much of a change to bring back players on a consistent basis. And that's really the issue. Maybe with the Destiny 3, they could also think about going into a subscription model that would allow them to fund some additional content or change up the way they are putting out content over the long haul as well. I don't know, but the game desperately needs changes, and as it stands, I don't see it happening in a way that's going to revitalize Destiny in the near future, which is really unfortunate because it is my favorite franchise and one that I'm really hopeful will be successful long term. But right now, the path forward is very murky, and that's very frustrating as a long-time player. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like the video, as always, comment, subscribe. Have a good one. I'll catch you all later.